Hi everybody, this video is going to be a little bit different because I don't just play video games all day. I am also a very big fan of music, and I've been collecting vinyl records for the past couple of years, since like 2020. I started collecting them when it was getting more popular, but it wasn't as pretty much mainstream as it is now, which is also reflected in the prices that I paid for records compared to what they cost now, which is kind of a funny trend to follow, because, you know, as things get popular, they increase the prices by a lot, sometimes like criminally. And I just wanted to make a video about this rise of physical media that I've noticed for the past couple of years, because I've been following this out of interest a little bit, and it's definitely an interesting trend to see, because a couple of years ago, especially in like the early 2000s, if you still owned CDs or vinyl, especially vinyl, you were either like the most boomer imaginable, or you were like a complete and utter hipster. Pretty much everybody was starting to move to digital music, like Spotify, and when like in the early 2000s, you download them illegally online. Digital media was definitely getting more popular in the early 2000s. And if you owned vinyl back then, like everybody threw out their vinyl and cassettes and CDs, which is a shame. For the past couple of years, especially with young people, because old people, if you are an old person and you are collecting vinyl or CDs or like physical media, you've always been doing it. But young people are only recently, the last couple of years, started to get interested in this media. And that is an interesting development, and I want to talk about why I think that is the case. Because as I said, old people, mostly boomers, they have been doing it probably for always. The main reason why older people do it is either because they do it because, you know, they used to do it, they just never stopped doing it, or it reminds them of when they were young, for example. They might just not know any better. That's also just the case, or just haven't moved on. They didn't feel a need to move on to digital music platforms. Or they're audiophiles, which mostly older people are audiophiles, who are the type of people who can't come unless it's in like the highest sound quality imaginable. So they buy these physical media, and they buy the most expensive amplifier or CD player and the most expensive speakers and record player, just so they can hear their music in the highest sound quality. If you have two ears like me, you probably won't know much of a difference between like digital and physical media. But, you know, objectively, I think digital media has a lower sound quality than physical media. You won't hear much of a difference unless you play it like at the highest quality with like the best speakers. I think I've never heard much of a difference, and I've been collecting vinyl for like 4 years now. But that's something that attracts older people, definitely. And younger people started doing it too the last couple of years. A couple of reasons. Some of these reasons aren't exclusive to younger people. It's definitely something that older people have too. And some of them are unique. The first one that is kind of universal. I think people are just longing for the experience of physical media over digital media, because digital media, the main benefit of it, it is incredibly convenient. You just press a button and boom, you have like thousands of songs at your disposal, and you can just press a button and it immediately plays, and it's very easy and convenient. But I think people are starting to get bored with that. It is kind of too easy for some to listen to music. For me, for example, that was kind of a deal, because you know that feeling of when you hear like a song you like on the radio? That's so much better than just looking up on Spotify or putting on a playlist and putting on a shuffle and like the song comes on. People are longing for this experience that a lot of digital media can't give you anymore. There's definitely upsides of digital media too. I think it's way more easy to discover new music, for example. But the experience of like putting on a vinyl record or putting in a CD in your CD player and having this like physical media that you can hold in your hands and talk about. This is just a single, it's just 2 songs. It's a very different experience from just clicking a button. And I think people want to go back to putting more effort into their music listening experience. It's also for people who want to be pretentious about music, like me, and especially younger people. Younger people have started to collect a lot more vinyl records than they used to. Like, back when I started, it was definitely up and coming, but it wasn't as mainstream as it is now with younger people. And I think it's very interesting and very cool to see how younger people like me, I'm not some fucking boomer, I'm fucking 20 years old and I've so many fucking records. So these younger people have really started to take more interest in vinyl the last couple of years, like me. And I think it's a cool development. Now, I think what attracts younger people is the vibe. I already talked about the experience, just putting on a record or like putting in a CD. I think younger people are very, I don't know what the word for it is, the correct word in English. It's younger people are attracted more to the vibe of listening to music physically. Like playing a record, it has this certain vibe to it that younger people really try to seek out. Which ties into another trend I've been seeing for the past couple of years. Like secondhand thrift stores are becoming very popular with younger people, with like millennials and students and all that. My demographic, literally. As I said, I'm 20. I'm talking like I'm 60 years old. But I've noticed that my generation, I should probably say, is taking more of an interest in just things that are old. I think that's definitely getting a comeback. And this is just a general part of that. Like a lot of thrift stores have these old vinyl records. There's just this general resurgence of anything that is old and antiques and all that. And people going to thrift store, young people, is definitely connected to the resurgence of vinyl, of people seeking out things that are old. Like everything is just so convenient these days and so sleek and well designed. And people want to go back to a time where that isn't the case, just, for the experience, for the vibe, pretty much. There's also just like the feeling of holding something in your hands, which is just like listening to music that you can just hold in your hand. It's just an experience that I think is very cool. Like, I can't do this on Spotify. This plays music and I'm holding it in my hand, which is a cool thing for me personally. So people are attracted to vinyl and CDs because it's something physical you can hold, which is definitely more popular. Like with thrift stores, people are looking for like these cute little things that they can put in their homes. Another thing is, I think TikTok probably has a good amount to do with it too. BookTok, the side of TikTok that talks about books and all that. That has made for such a resurgence of like books. People stopped reading books for like a very long time. People barely read anything anymore. But these days, BookTok is so popular and has really popularized reading books again. Kind of romanticized. I think that's a big part of it too, that young people are very susceptible to. Is that a correct word? I hope so. People are very young, especially young people, are very susceptible to things that are romanticized, just like books and physical media. It's become cool to do this, and it's very unique and vibey, as I said, and that's just something that people want. So BookTok has made a lot of people pick up a book again, which I think is a cool development. I do think that is a good thing that TikTok and BookTok has brought the world. I don't read that many books, but I think it's cool to see people do that. But I think that also extends to vinyl, because there's also people, content creators on the internet, on TikTok for example, who make videos about vinyl and give like tips to people who are starting out, or like recommendations. And that is definitely something. It isn't as big as BookTok, because BookTok is absolutely huge, but it is definitely something that will get more people interested in the hobby of collecting physical media. So TikTok definitely plays a part in that, and I'm not opposed to that. I think it's a cool development. I don't like when people are like, oh, TikTok bad, and young people buying books, they're just doing it because it's cool now. Like, I don't get that mindset. I just think it's cool that people are buying vinyl again and buying CDs and all that and reading books. Who cares? As long as they're having fun. And it's cool that this development is happening, in my opinion. It's also just like, for some people it can also just be a way to stand out from the crowd if they want to be alternative. Like for me, it's a big part of my personality, because it's like one of the things that I would say is like a little bit different about me, about collecting physical media. It's definitely like a fairly unique character trait. You shouldn't let that rise to your head. You shouldn't become pretentious. Try not to. But it's definitely something, it's a bit quirky. It's a bit alternative. You're a bit of a hipster if you do it. That can definitely be appealing to some who want to like separate themselves from like the masses, which isn't inherently a bad thing. I don't think you're pretentious if that's your goal. Depends on how you communicate that, I guess. Also a big part, like a lot of big artists, Harry Styles, Taylor Swift, are starting to ship their new albums on vinyl again. And these people have very loyal fan base, especially Taylor Swift has a very loyal fan base. So when they put out this media, this physical media, fans are very likely to buy it. Especially with Taylor Swift. I have nothing against her or her music. Literally nothing against that. But as for a business move, what she does, I think is a bit scummy, but that's like a whole nother discussion. Like, I think it's a bit scummy to release 3 different versions of the same album and have each album have like a unique song that you can't listen to anywhere else. I think that's kind of unfair to your fans because you know the fans will buy it anyway. I've even seen some Taylor Swift fans speak up about this practice. I just think that's a bit of a scummy thing to do, but that's one of the reasons why people are buying vinyl again. Their favorite artists are putting it out on vinyl, and sometimes these records have unique songs, which isn't inherently a bad thing. I should say that. I think that's a very cool thing if you have like songs on a record that you can't listen to anywhere else. It definitely gives this feeling of exclusivity, and that's very cool. But what you can't do is say, hey guys, there's not going to be any more versions of this album anymore, so people buy the ones that already exist, and then later, a couple of weeks later, announce, hey guys, sorry I lied to you, there's going to be another version of this record with songs that you can't hear anywhere else. That's scummy. But just the basic thing of putting songs on that you won't put on Spotify on CDs or records, I think that's a cool thing. But that's definitely a reason why people would buy physical media too, because if you are a big fan of someone, you will want to hear all of their songs. So that makes sense. You would have to invest in owning this physical media, and maybe when you start collecting your favorite artists, you might also start getting more into the media itself. If you start by collecting these Taylor Swift records, you might be interested in records from other artists. And I do think that's a very cool thing that these popular artists are putting their music on vinyl, because it gets a lot more people into the hobby. I do think you shouldn't exploit your fans, however, because if your fans are very loyal, I think it's unfair to your fans. But that's like a whole nother story. So the idea of putting songs on physical media that isn't on Spotify is very cool, I have to say that. And that's definitely something that gets more people into the hobby, which I think is a good thing. So yeah, that's pretty much like the reasons why it's becoming more popular. This general resurgence of anything that is old. People want the experience, people want the vibes of physical media, people want to kind of set themselves apart and have this unique thing that they can be passionate about. And it's nice to discuss, and it's very varied, like physical media. There's so many different forms, and it's like very cool to invest in that. Or you just want to support your favorite artist, which is a cool thing too, or you want to listen to these songs that you can't listen to anywhere else. I think these are probably the biggest reasons why people are collecting vinyl again. So yeah, thank you for watching. I hope this video was informative. I might have forgotten some things that why people would collect it, but if you have any like quirky reason why you collect physical media, please leave it in the comments. Like, I'm very curious to read all that. And one last point that I want to make, I don't want anyone to gatekeep these new people for collecting physical media, for collecting vinyl or CDs, because I think that's a very scummy thing to do, in my opinion. Especially older people do that, or like people who are so pretentious that they can't enjoy seeing anyone new getting into physical media. Like, if I see someone buying a Taylor Swift record, I think, cool, they're buying physical media. Like, I wouldn't think, oh god, no, they're just doing it because it's hip. I think that's a very bad attitude to have, and I wouldn't encourage anyone watching this to have this attitude. Just be happy that people are interested in the hobby again, and you can share your passion with more people nowadays. I'm definitely grateful for these new artists like Taylor Swift, Harry Styles, all these big artists who have been putting out their music on physical media, because I do think it is a good thing generally for the medium, and it's just more people to discuss this thing that I'm very passionate about with. And that's just very cool, and I wouldn't want to see anyone gatekeeping this, or like, oh, you listen to this artist or whatever. That's invalid. Like, I knew there's a record store in my city who, like, this total boomer guy, by the way, so that kind of explains a lot, but he wouldn't stock Taylor Swift records. Or like K-pop. K-pop is also very popular on vinyl, I should say. But I just don't get that. I think that's a very narrow-minded, old-fashioned attitude to have. You should be happy that people are buying physical media. And it doesn't matter if they're buying K-pop or Taylor Swift or fucking Pink Floyd, like the most pretentious hipster you can be. Just enjoy. Enjoy this new resurgence of physical media, because it is a cool thing. Physical media is cool, and just be a little bit more positive, I would say. So yeah, thank you for watching. That was kind of my my moral grandstand at the end. Hope you enjoyed this video.